Welcome back. We're here for another episode, 25 of Two Plane Sports, quarter of the way to 100. If you guys haven't already, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and the notifications so you know whenever we release another video. We really appreciate the support and everything that you guys have been showing us and giving us your input. And we've got some good topics coming up today, a little bit about who's going to be in town in Norman this weekend. And then just something fun and something to hypothetically that could happen. I mean, it wouldn't happen this year, but we developed an OU football schedule if they were in the SEC this year. And it would just be interesting to see how that would work out and the win-loss records. So we're going to go through, predict every win, every loss, and then some SEC conference championships, college football playoffs, and a championship, and see what happens. It's just something that probably will happen in the not too far future, if we were to guess. I know they said 2025 today, but I don't think anyone believes that. So we'll get going into it. Just a little bit about this weekend. There's not been a whole lot of stuff about who's going to be there this weekend as much as the first barbecue. It's not going to be as big as what it was in June. Obviously, kids are, football season's almost getting ready to start for a lot of high schools, and a lot of kids have already been on campus and maybe not coming back for a second time. I know there's going to be quite a few Oklahoma kids because, I mean, they're, in this area. Jacob Sexton, Robert Spears Jennings, Jaden Rowe, David Stone, who's a 2024 defensive lineman out of Del City, I believe. Micah Tees, who is the little brother of Miles Tees? I can't remember who played for us. Yeah, it's Miles Tees. And then Gentry Williams from Booker T, who's teammates with Tees. And then supposedly Chris McClone is supposed to be showing up as well this weekend, the defensive lineman out of Owasso, who the Sooners have been competing hard with the Gators and the Buckeyes. So those, I mean, it seems like those 8 or 9 kids will be in town, and they're Oklahoma kids. It's tough to say right now who exactly is going to be in town and who might cancel last second. But I really think getting Gentry Williams and Chris McClellan on campus one more time before their football season start is big. Do you guys have anything to say about having some of these prospects on campus? It's pretty crazy that 2024 kids already coming on campus.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me, that we're already going that far into the future. I think it's kind of, did you mention, is it just kind of like he's coming along with someone, or was he actually invited to this?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, he's been offered by the Sooners, so I think he's coming on his own. I mean, he's
Okay.
from Del City. I don't think there's any kid that I can think of off that list that's from Del City.
Okay.
That
So then, yeah, I think it's just crazy that we're even looking that far ahead already. But I mean, we already started. We've got commitments for 2023, and it's never too soon to get onto the next class. So we've obviously done, the coaching staff has done their work for the 2023 class. I think they kind of have an idea of how that's going to end up. Obviously, things will change over the next year and a half, but they obviously feel good about where they are within that class. So they're going to start looking at least in-state talent for 2024. And I'm sure over the next 8 months, we'll start hearing more names pop up in 2024 that they're really looking at. More than likely, I would say some defensive talent, just because it might kind of be that back and forth like Lincoln does with quarterbacks. Maybe he'll start looking at DBs every other year. Super talented DBs come in and take the spot of their predecessor.
Yeah. Brandon, do you have anything to add, or are we?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's exciting stuff. I think so. There's a couple things that go through my mind right away. Is first of all, that kid in the 2024 class is already being recruited or looked at in this way. He's got to be a freak of nature. Like, that kid's a freshman. He's 14 years old, 13 years old, whatever. And OU's looking at him like that kid's special. Then, so like 4 or 5 out of the 9 kids you listed are already committed to OU.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not necessarily too much worried about them. I look at this as this weekend is the time to lock down Gentry Williams and lock down McClellan.
Yeah.
That should be priority 1 for OU this weekend, is get those kids to
Yeah.
kind of flip that switch from USC or from Ohio State, wherever they are, respectively, to Norman, to Oklahoma. That's priority one for me for this weekend. That's what I hope to see happen. And all this talk with SEC, I mean, it's trending our way anyway. This is our weekend to kind of seal that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And talking about the David Stone, the 2024 defensive lineman, he's 6'4", 240 pounds the last time he was measured. Granted, when you're that age at 14, 15, whatever he is, you're growing like crazy. So he might even be bigger than what the last time he was measured at,
He's a
which is hard to
freak.
believe. Yeah. So, I mean, and it's homegrown, and you can't let a kid like that, even it's 2-3 years ahead, you can't let him leave. But I think there was a lot of hype with Gentry Williams with USC. I think he's coming back to his senses, and with Chris McClellan not pulling the trigger on the commitment to Ohio State. Every day that passes, it's opening the door more and more for the Sooners, and it seemed like he was a
That's
lock. I mean, everyone was talking about all these crystal balls, well, for Gentry Williams and Chris McClellan, because I remember watching him fly in for Ohio State for Chris McClellan. And then all of a sudden now it's like, wait a minute, why? I thought he was going to pull the trigger, secure a spot, because their defensive line in the 2021 class, what is it, with Jack Sawyer and a Tulamalu. I mean, and I think they've got someone else, but it's really strong. And then they got 2022. I know they're competing with Kenyatta Jackson. It's kind of they're going to run out of numbers. And I feel like if Chris McClellan really wanted to be there, he would have already locked in his spot, because they might not have room for him. So there has to be something trending for the Sooners with McClellan as he's drawing this out further. So, which is good to see.
that has to be. I mean that it has to be where we want to be this weekend. Like as far like that's got to be locking those kids up, or at least getting at least make them lean a little bit more our way. Like if I'm Oklahoma, that's all I'm talking to this weekend almost.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're the priority, and I think the SEC deal is like the cherry on top. And they can, I think I read something that the question was, do the Sooners coaches know that OU was trying to go to the SEC? And the resounding answer is no. Well, they weren't telling kids that they were going to go. I'm sure the coaches had an idea, but they weren't selling them on like, well, we're going to be in the SEC, you should play for us. So I think this is truly becoming hype, or like a lot of interest because of this news coming out for, various kids, whether that's McClellan or Gentry Williams or even Gabriel Brownwell Dindy. But I wouldn't say that we're going to see a commitment out of Gentry Williams or Chris McClellan real quick after this. But it could be something after, somewhere in this fall
They're
after
both
another visit.
class of 2022, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to happen sooner than later.
I
Yeah.
would say it's
I
probably
think,
like early commitment in November, December, whenever it is.
yeah,
I would assume,
December.
especially
Yeah.
with them being in state. It's like Brum mentioned, it's going to be much harder for them to sway back to USC and Ohio State, because Norman's right down the street. If coaches want to go visit them on a random weekend, they can, and vice versa. They can invite them over to Norman, and it's a quick 2-hour drive for them and their parents, rather than having to plan out a trip to Columbus or SoCal. It's going to be much
Yeah.
easier for Oklahoma to lock those guys up.
Yeah. And they've got connections to the Sooners football team. I mean, they're friends with various players. And if OU puts a really good show on this year, plays like they should, I just think they have a very good chance of winning out on both. And then obviously I mentioned Gabriel Brownwell Dindy. The Sooners are still recruiting him hard. Parents are pretty excited about the SEC move, but I think the key is going to be getting him on campus this fall, which the report is he's going to be coming for, I believe, the Western Carolina game. Get him on campus, have a good showing. Obviously, it's Western Carolina, whatever. It's going to be over by the first quarter, but I think getting him on campus will be big, and just holding off the Aggies. And I know he's going to go visit Alabama this fall, but I think it's between Texas A&M and Oklahoma. So, and another guy that the Sooners are trying to get in on is, I don't know if I'm saying this right, his name's Hero Kanu, Kanu. He's a 2022 four-star defensive lineman, number 80 overall, and the number 12 defensive lineman in the 2022 class, and out of Rancho Santana Margarita, California. So, and he's set to visit the Sooners this fall, and I don't know what game, but he's going to be on campus. So and you've got Kenyatta Jackson still out there, Brownwell Dindy, Chris McClellan, Omari Abor is still floating out there. I don't know how relevant he's going to be, or what the chances are for him. The SEC deal is definitely helping with the Abor, but I think we're going to be very happy with the defensive line group. And like Brandon was saying, I think I agree with him that this weekend has to be the Chris McClellan, Gentry Williams full court press. You do not let two kids, a couple 4-stars and arguably a 4-star and a 5-star. I think Gentry Williams should be a 5-star, but you don't let those kids leave your backyard. And I feel like for once, after watching Josh Proctor, Dax Hill, and a few others leave, I never really felt like we had a chance with them. But this time I feel like we have a chance with both these kids. For a while there was a chance I was like, man, we're probably going to lose both, but now it's coming back. I think time's winning, and then I think the hometown team might end up winning out. So, and they're buddies.
And I totally agree with you on that. I actually, like, going back to the very jump, like from the start of all this, I thought Gentry was a lock. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it started to switch out to, Southern California or even Florida. He started looking good there. Chris McClellan, we started losing him to Ohio State. Like you said, now we're going, it's trending our direction. And like Jose said, and if you're Oklahoma, these kids, we got to keep in mind they're 17 years old or 18 years old. They're seniors in high school. So they've got friends in Owasso, Oklahoma, and in Tulsa, where Gentry's from. I think it's where Booker T is, somewhere in Tulsa. You have to sell that if you're Oklahoma. Like, hey, you're 2 hours from from everybody you love. You're right there.
Yeah, I know.
Sell it.
I think they will. I don't think either one of those kids are going to leave the state. So, and they're definitely not going to play for Oklahoma State. So that leaves one program.
Hose is making some weird faces. Hose, what do you got to say, bud?
You were just freezing up there for me a little bit, but yeah, I don't think anyone's going to Oklahoma State. They shouldn't. They can just, I talked about it in the last episode. We don't have to play them anymore, so they can lose all the funding and just disappear forever. But whatever.
Yeah. So
I just think it helps us recruiting, like we all talked about, that everybody that they love is 2 hours away, literally down the street. It takes. We all went to OU, and our parents were in Tulsa. It takes 2 hours to go home anytime you want to.
No, it does. That is true.
That's nice.
But it is very nice. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see who actually shows up this weekend, and how these visits go. And I think it'll be big indication of where some commitments could come from. We'll see. And you can't let those two kids leave your own backyard. So we'll move on to something fun. Hypothetically, what could happen. It won't happen in 2021, which is what we've done. We've created an SEC schedule for OU, and we're going to predict the win-loss and of a regular season, conference championship, and playoffs maybe, and see what happens. So week one, what I've done is the only out-of-conference game I dropped was Western Carolina, because, it's pretty irrelevant, and I added in Oklahoma State as an out-of-conference deal because I think there is a chance that we do play Oklahoma State year in, year out, continue the home and home deal as a good gesture to the Cowboys to keep their ticket sales up. And it's fun no matter what to play Bedlam. It's it's not really a rivalry, but it's fun to play them every year to just put them back in their place. So week one, open up at Tulane. I don't think either one of you will disagree with me. That's going to be a win. It's probably going to be 55-14, something like that. And, a garbage time touchdown for Tulane. And that'll probably be about it. Or, one in the beginning, one at the end, and that's probably about it. We'll move on. We're going to be at home against Nebraska. Nebraska's going to get the brakes beat off of them. it's not even going to be really a close competition. I don't think at all, unless you guys disagree. You know, and then we're going to be on the road at Oklahoma State.
55-14.
Ass kicking.
We might be able to put up 180 in the first 3 games combined. 180 points in the first 3 games, and
228.
228 in the first 3. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much a kind of a cakewalk, even though, Nebraska's in the Big Ten, and then I don't know, Oklahoma State would be in the Little 8 or whatever they're going to be.
Or 242 is what it would be if we're spotting 14 for the first 3 games.
Yeah,
180 to 42.
That's not too bad. That's a pretty good start. Now, where it could get more interesting. So the Sooners are 3-0 at the end of week 3. They swept out a conference at this point. We're going to move on to renew a little bit of a rivalry. We're going to be in this hypothetical situation. We're playing at home against Mizzou. One of my favorite games that OU ever played against Missouri was in the Big 12 championship game. I forget what year that was in, but it was an awesome game. I know there was like a fumble return and all this other stuff. And I think Missouri was number 1 in the country. And I think Oklahoma at the time was
with Chase Daniel.
I think so.
And Jeremy Macklin.
I think so. Now I'm curious. What do you guys think about that one? I mean, I think OU's
not close.
Breaks off
Again, not competitive.
I think we're gonna go into the schedule a little bit before we think any game is competitive, especially if we're doing a hypothetical this year. We probably have the best offense and very much improved defense that we are very high on. So I think Missouri might put up more points than the others, but they're not going to put up more than 21.
No, yeah, it's that Mizzou game's not competitive either. We beat the brakes off of them too.
Yeah. So it was the 2007 Big 12 championship
with
game.
Chase Daniel.
Yes. So I'm trying
and
to.
Jeremy Macklin.
Game summary.
I was there. I was
38-17. Yeah, and then that was Sam Bradford was there. It was playing in the Alamo Dome.
I want to say Cliff Alexander had a fumble return in that game.
He might have. Yeah, it was Chase Daniel, Sam Bradford,
Jeremy Macklin.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know, but that one was a fun one. I remember that. But okay, so 4-0. Then we're going to be playing at home against Vanderbilt, which should be another just blowout.
55-14 again. Let's keep that score consistent.
They should just call in with like a COVID outbreak and not even show up to Norman.
And forfeit the game.
Give us the automatic W. Save them the gas.
Yeah.
So just put us at 5-0 though.
5-0, rolling in second weekend of October. OU Texas in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl.
This is our first chance at a hiccup, just because Oklahoma, Texas is always going to throw the kitchen sink at us. That being said, at least if we're talking this year hypothetical, we don't lose. It's going to be a 2-touchdown game. I think it's like a 35-21, 34-17 type game, but Oklahoma wins.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it'll be pretty close for the first 2.5 quarters, and then we pull away. For some reason, that just seems to be the way we like to play against Texas, and they love to try against us as hard as possible. So,
though that is the first chance at a hiccup, just because Texas will play everything at us.
Yeah.
But we do win. We all agree on that.
Yeah. So 6-0. Moving on to the next game. This schedule is definitely back half is loaded in the back half, but it's not this next game. We're going to be at home against Arkansas.
Is Jeremy Macklin coming back?
Yeah, no. So it's 55-14.
Yeah, I like our odds.
Yeah,
Mike Woods gets to go back to his previous school, so it'd be fun for him. It'll be a cool story there.
Yeah, put him in the end zone.
Hopefully,
Put him in the end zone that weekend.
Maybe he sets a couple records that day. For single game yards or touchdowns or something.
Yeah. Now, okay, so 7-0. This is when the gauntlet kind of begins. They have a bye week in week 8, rest up, and they week 9 at LSU in Baton Rouge on prime time.
Usually that would be tough if we're talking about this year specifically. Not tough. That's another game where I think we win similar to Texas. 2 scores, potentially 3 scores, a 34-13, 34-17, 35-21 type game, somewhere in that area.
I think this is the first game where the opponent's home field advantage is going to get to us a little bit, and that's the only reason that it'll be a closer game than it should be. But yeah, definitely still a win. I don't know if about like I don't think it would be 3 touchdown. Definitely like 10, 14-point game, but we definitely win.
I think it's
LSU
a 10-point
won
game.
like 4 games last year, guys.
I understand, but this would be the first time that not only Lincoln coaches at LSU, but all of our players would be there for the first time, other than Trey.
I think it could be a slow start, but then we take away, because at the end of the day, talent wins, and they're not talented, at least not right now.
That'd be back-to-back returns for 2 of our transfers, though. Trey would be more than likely playing in that game. Hopefully he sets records against LSU, if he gets to play a lot, but it would be fun to see a guy like that.
Usually that game's tough. This year it shouldn't be. I'm gonna agree with you guys.
Actually, no, hold on.
I'm gonna agree on the home court, on the home field thing, which might lead to a slow start, but at the end of the day, talent wins, and we are way more talented than them.
Their offense is not great. I agree 100%. That side of the ball is bad for them right now, but they have probably the best defensive back duo in the country right now, and Derek Stingley, and I think his name's Eli Ricks or something like that. Derek Stingley was
Elias Risk.
Yeah.
Then let's run it for 250 yards.
Derek was a true freshman, and I'm pretty sure at the time when as a true freshman, he ranked as a top 3 corner, and this is going into his junior year.
Then let's run for 250.
That's fine. I'm just saying I think it's going to be a lot closer than you would suspect, just because their defense is so talented.
And they did get a decent quarterback. I just looked it up. Garrett Newsomeyer. I don't know if he'll start this fall, but I know he was like a.
It's OU by 3 touchdowns.
See, I think they'll win.
It's OU by 3 touchdowns.
I really think the first year, whenever this does happen, the first year in the SEC will be harder because of that home field. I think that home field, because as much as we don't want to admit the SEC, and now we're going to be a part of it, their home field and their environments are way different than the Big 12.
It's OU by 3 touchdowns.
It goes back to what I mentioned in our last video. Like, this is good not only for OU and Texas going to the SEC, and the SEC obviously improves, but the state of Oklahoma, whenever people say like Oklahoma didn't take into account, the state, the president for OSU said that, like, this is going to help potentially financially a lot of businesses, because those fans travel and they travel well. So we're going to see a lot of people coming in, and it's going to be the same way, when we go to, LSU and Alabama, like, our fans travel well as well. So like their home, like you said, their home field advantage is an actual thing. It's not like going to, the Big 12 schools where in Ames, it's obviously a big thing, but I don't think it's huge. We can go to Lawrence and it's less than a high school stadium attendance.
It's OU by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, I think you're I think you're crazy to think that. I think it's more of like a 7 to 10 point game. And I think it's like a first true wake up call of like, this is kind of different.
They literally went like 5-7 last year. You guys realize that?
That's fine. Their defense is still very good.
They lost to bullshit. They lost to horrible teams. It's OU by 3 touchdowns. Move on to the next one. We all agree right now. We just disagree on the score.
Yes, I think this is where the SEC like hits us when in regards to their home field advantages.
Yeah, I'm just
why not Missouri?
Because it's not the same.
It's SEC. Why not Arkansas?
It's not the same. Even like going down to LSU is different.
Normally, I would agree with you. LSU at this moment in time is
their
not good.
Their fans are still there. It's going to be a packed stadium.
Yeah. So anyway,
if we sell our stadium to play, if we sell our stadium to play us in football, our friends, all 11 of our friends, are we going to play Oklahoma close?
Yeah, you're being ridiculous. You know what we mean. Going to LSU, their fans, no matter how good or bad their team is, just like Oklahoma fans, are rowdy. They're going to be there, and they're going to make sure that they're going to be as loud as possible to make it hard for anyone to communicate on the field.
But we're way more talented.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, like, that's the first stadium where it's going to be like, wow, this is a very different environment that we're playing in.
Yeah.
So it's about 3 touchdowns, but we all agree we're 8-0.
8-0. We're moving on. Now, I think this is another whammy. This is another primetime game on the road at Texas A&M at night. I'm sure they make it primetime, playing the Aggies again, renewing this Big 12 rivalry at Kyle Field. I mean, I still think that we beat them, but I think it's like 3 or 4 points. Like, I think it's actually really close.
I don't think it's that close for this game. I think this game is maybe two or three touchdowns, just because after, like, we will have gotten a feeling of what it is to be in an SEC stadium after an LSU. So then I think that the coaches will know how to, like, calm the guys down a little bit more once we do go to Kyle Field. But I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I just think that because we are following it up after being at LSU, which I believe is a much more like rowdy fan base, and they're a lot more passionate about the Tigers than Aggie fans are, I don't think it affects us as much.
Oklahoma by 10 minimum.
Yeah. All right. So 9-0. We're gonna host Auburn. I think we handle Auburn with ease. I mean,
especially at the Palace. At the Palace. Yeah. It's ugly.
Yeah. So 10-0. Then we host Kentucky. I think that's another beat down. I don't think that's
55-14, like we went back to earlier.
So 11-0, another primetime game on the road. We close out the season against Alabama. I know typically the last game of the year is for Auburn to play in the Iron Bowl against, maybe it's not the last game of every season. I can't remember for Alabama, but in this scenario, we have on the road at Alabama, 11-0, most likely against 11-0. Personally, I think we lose that one on the road at Alabama.
I said off recording, offline, just you and I, so you're talking, I agreed with you. But if we're talking this year specifically, I think we sneak out a close one in Tuscaloosa. And it comes down to quarterback play, in my opinion. We have the experienced veteran. They've got a kid who's never played football in his life, at the collegiate level. I think our experience edges them out. It's very close. It's dangerously close. I think we win this game by 2 or 3.
Jose?
I think we win. I think we win by 10. I think this is the game where, like, not only is
he's bugging me.
No, I think this is the game where our defense is going to be way more motivated because this is the top dog in the SEC. Our offense is going to be the best in the country. Like, we're going to score on them at will. This will look more like a Big 12 game than I believe it would look more like a Big 12 game than we.
This guy says we beat LSU on the road by like 3.
I said 10-14.
Who's not even very good, and he's like locked in, confident about us beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
One, it's a first-year quarterback. No sense. It's a first-year quarterback, like you said. Most of their team is new. Most of them are new starters, right? They have a new offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien, so essentially also a new offense, and we just have more experience on them. On both sides of the ball. Yeah. See, against LSU, 1, I said it's the first time we're in an SEC stadium, and 2, their defense is experienced, so they know how to cover.
They are far less talented than Alabama. LSU is.
That's fine. We're not talking about LSU, Alabama. We're talking Oklahoma versus Alabama, and I feel like we are more experienced than them.
I agree. We win because of that, but I think
we're gonna go in there.
Yeah.
It's so close.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I think we're going to go in there with and just an attitude that we have to win this and we have to make it convincing.
So I think we're 11-1. You both think we're 12-0.
Either way, though, 11-1 or 12-0 should put us in the playoff.
Yeah, so SEC Conference Championship game, assuming the best two teams are going to the championship game, I think it's going to be another rematch of Alabama, Oklahoma. And in my scenario, I think Oklahoma beats them in the SEC championship game. And so I think they're 12-1, SEC champions.
I think that, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's Georgia, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I guess it depends. If it's pods, then I could see it being Alabama, Oklahoma rematch. But if it's just two divisions, then I think it would be Georgia, Oklahoma, and just the two top that came out of the conference, and we would be the reason that Alabama's on the SEC championship. And yeah, I think we win that one as well. I don't know about how much, but it'll be. I mean, it's a championship game, so it'll be close.
Yeah,
I agree with those. I mean, we've talked about it a million times on this podcast. We've talked about it a million times offline, just between each other. This is our year. It has to be our year. We've talked about it a million times. I'm locking it in. This is our year. It has to be our year. So I'm picking Oklahoma again.
Yeah. And then we'll move on to the playoffs. I have Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. I don't think that's much of a shock. I would think that's probably what you guys would assume as well. And then probably
that's an unreal field.
Yeah.
Bracket.
Yeah. Then maybe it's Clemson, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ohio State in the first semis. And then honestly, I really think it's going to be Alabama, Oklahoma again in the national championship game for a third time.
I'm riding high on us one more time.
Yeah, I think we finished the season 2-1.
This has to be our year.
I would put Clemson since I have Georgia in the championship over Alabama, I would just swap those two out, and I would guess that it's Oklahoma Clemson just because DJ has played for Clemson, and pretty much same team. They just swapped quarterbacks, so. I mean, we'll see, but I do think Oklahoma wins the national championship.
Yeah. No, I think we all can agree that we think OU is going to win. And whether, how we get there or not, one way or another, whether it's one loss or no losses. I mean, in the first season, if OU goes 11-1 in the regular season in the SEC, that's a win. So
it's not though. We've done that before. We've gone 11-1, 12-1 in the Big 12, made it to the playoffs and lost. So
well, I'm just talking about regular
season. In the SEC though.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's title or nothing in my mind. Well,
I think the schedule will be a lot harder, and I mean, yes, I agree. You have to win national championships, but I don't know. I think they'll put it together. I think we still win in real life. I think we win the 2021. I think we win it all this year.
So do I think we all agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this is just something fun. It's a possible schedule you might see in the future.
That went on longer than we expected, but it was a good time.
Yeah. So, but no, I'm sure we could even go further into it even more, but we don't want to, drag this out too far. But if you guys have made it this far, you deserve an award. We really appreciate it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, comment on what you think as far as OU schedule would be in that 2021 schedule that we thought of, what you think the record would be in the total outcome and your opinions on that. I personally think, what is it? 14-1 national champions, but the one loss Alabama. The other two pretty much think perfect season no matter what. So,
hey, we're not here to take part.
We're here to take over.
We're here to take over.
So, all righty. Well, we really appreciate it. Unless you guys have anything else to add, I think that's our show, and we're going to call it here. So, we really appreciate it, and make sure to let us know what you think.